48 hours in advance of the date setting forth the time, date, location, and type of meeting. Notice was sent to the Daily Record, the Observer Tribune, and the Washington Township Clerk, and was posted on the district website at www.schools.org. All please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then I would like to report on the annual school election and oaths of office. I would like to congratulate Jessica and Anna on their election, and I'd like to call them to the front to swear them in as board members.
She's in the parking lot.
Guess you're all waiting for me. The parking lot was full. Now I see why.
I state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm
I, Jessica, do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
I state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm
I, Jessica, solemnly swear or affirm
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of member of the Board of Education,
for the office of member of the Board of Education,
and not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
and not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
and not disqualified due to conviction of crime or offense pursuant to NJSA 18A:12-1,
and not disqualified due to conviction of crime or offense pursuant to NJSA 18A:12-1,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly
perform all duties of that office
perform all the duties of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Yeah, you can sign one more thing. Yeah, I'll put it down. That's not one to take pictures of.
Just really quick.
And then I'd like to take nominations for board president.
I'd like to nominate John O. Mixon.
Roll call. Oh,
You need to see if there's any.
oh, are there any other nominations?
Motion to close the nominations.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And this is just closing the nominations.
Aye.
Now,
Your roll call. So if you're supporting John's nomination for president, you just say yes or no, obviously. Certainly.
Just for full transparency's sake, as having been a board member for approximately 1 minute now, I am feeling extremely committed to working collaboratively with everyone on this board. I just want to learn a little bit more about board structures and leadership structures, so I will be abstaining from this vote next.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
No.
Mrs. Mutar?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira? Mrs. Scayano? Mr. Waskis?
Abstain.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes.
motion carried.
And just for the benefit of the public, we do have a board member participating virtually on the Zoom. So if you heard a name out of nowhere, that's where that came from.
Moving on to the nomination of vice president, motion to nominate the board vice president.
I'd like to motion to nominate Melanie Bratton.
Second out?
Are we ready for the nominations? So this is a motion to close the nominations. All in favor?
Sorry, motion?
Need a second on that?
Second.
Second.
Just seconded.
All right, so then all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, roll call?
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
No.
Mrs. Mutar?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Scayano? Mr. Waskis?
No.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. Motion carried.
5 yes.
Okay, so moving on to the annual appointments, motion to approve. Well, I think because moving on to annual appointments, motion to approve the annual appointments 3A through 3D on tonight's agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Mutar?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira?
Yes.
Mrs. Scayano?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Oldmixon?
Yes. Next, motion to approve the annual motions and designations described on the agenda under items 4A through 4D.
Second?
Discussion. 4D, I noticed the March meeting is not on a Tuesday. Is there a reason for that?
The reason was, and again, I was actually going to bring up discussion anyway, that's St. Patrick's Day. We had one more day. I asked, Antonella and Mark if it'd be available to do the following day, just because it's a holiday. I know Mark is unavailable that day, but it seemed to be available for school and everything else. So
He is a reason not available.
Mark is not available.
Okay. So I guess I'd like to amend motion 4D to move the March meeting to the 17th.
Need a second on that motion to amend.
Second. I motion to amend.
So there's discussion, all of the discussion. So is it just that the 18th is a conflict, or do you just want to retain the 17th Tuesday?
Pretty much, yeah. Just to stick with Tuesday. When Martha's not available.
Or somebody else from the firm. You know, is that correct?
It's going to be, just because we have a very tough schedule, the 18th, it's going to be tough in the interest of full disclosure to find coverage. I don't want to hold the board up if your desire is to go to the 18th. My preference certainly would be the 17th, so I can be here, but it's up to you, of course.
Is there any other discussion? All right, so we'll vote on, this is the motion to amend, correct?
To change it back to the 17th. yeah.
Okay, so roll call.
Mrs. Ryan? Yes. Mrs. DeSica?
Yes.
Mrs. Mutar?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera?
Yes.
Mrs. Guyana?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
No.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Oldham?
No. Okay, so we'll go for, when we do the roll call vote now, this is going to be for 4D as amended.
Yeah.
Is it,
But that
or
was,
is it all?
It's all from that, including the amendment to D. Yeah, you can do it all as a block.
Okay. Do we have a second on
So
that?
what we just voted on
Second.
was
Was
just
to
to
amend.
change?
Change it back to the 17th, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So we'll do the roll call vote on the block and 4D is as amended.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSica?
Yes.
Mrs. Mutar?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera?
Yes.
Mrs. Guyana?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Oldham?
Yes. Next on the agenda, I'm making a motion to enter executive session to discuss matters of attorney-client privilege.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion. That's a voice vote.
Yeah, you can do it on paper.
Yeah, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll be in exec session, we'll try to keep it as brief as possible, we estimate about 15 minutes. Thank you. Thanks everyone for your patience. Moving on to President's comments. Good evening, Washington Township. I want to thank the Board of Education for voting for me to return as president for a third time. I also wanted to congratulate Anna Sciano, Kelly Mutart, and Justice Seco for winning their elections in November, and welcome Anna and Kelly as the two new board members, and I look forward to working with you both. We've had a limited number of school days since the last meeting, and we have a few reports and ethics presentations tonight, so I'll keep my comments brief. But I wanted to acknowledge the school resource officers and the vital role they play in protecting our students and staff within our district. The board was updated over the break that Officer Adam Feichter, who has been a school resource officer for 3.5 years in the district, is being rotated out as an SRO, and Officer Corey Lee, who was an SRO in the district for 3 years previously, will be taking his place. I wanted to take this moment to thank Mr. Feichter and all his hard work and dedication to this district over the last 3.5 years. And I'm sure if the timing was a little different, the students and staff would have provided a special thank you at the school for his time with us. But nevertheless, I wanted to acknowledge him here tonight. Additionally, I wanted to welcome back Officer Corey Lee and welcome Class 3 Officer Brian Ships, who has also joined the district and is well received and off to a great start. And lastly, I wanted to thank the Washington Township Police Department for their continued support and collaboration, and we look forward to building on that in the future. I also wanted to point out on agenda item number 1 tonight is a revision to the current school year calendar. The reason that's is on there is because on Tuesday, December 16th at LVMS, there was a significant water main break outside of the middle school. As a result, there was no running water and limited heat in the building, and the district was forced to mobilize buses quickly as students needed to be dismissed early that day. I'm sure this was a large convenience for parents, and we acknowledge that, but unfortunately events like that are out of our control, and the district acted in the best interest and safety of the students and staff. I want to thank the Maintenance and Transportation Departments, Donald Todd, Principal Ippolito, Vice Principal Mirabella, John Bazooka, Chris Ryan, and all the others who were involved. We greatly appreciate it. The reason why this impacts the calendar is because LVMS will have to make up a half a day during the school year. The day that was least interruptive to operations was Monday, January 19th. So again, this only does impact LVMS, but I just wanted to call this out here tonight as this was carefully reviewed, but nevertheless acknowledge the inconvenience this may cause. That's all my comments for now, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Lynn.
Good evening, thank you, and congratulations to everyone here tonight. This evening, I will be reporting in accordance with New Jersey's Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act, the result of the HIB-related investigations as conducted by designated school personnel, and they should be reported to the Board of Education no later than the date of the regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. Total for the district, 1 is unfounded and 1 is founded. And both were reported at Benedict A. Cuccinella School. Again, 1 was unfounded and 1 was found. Also this evening, I will be reporting on the mid-year HIB report as well. That spans from September to December. In accordance with New Jersey's Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, the results of the HIB-related investigations as conducted by designated school personnel will be reported to the Board of Education no later than the date of the regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting following the completion of the investigation. Again, this is our district totals for the mid-year reporting period, and for the total number of reports unfounded are 14, and the total reports that are founded are 6. And per school, Benedict A. Cuccinella School had 5 in total, Flocktown Cosman School had 0, Old Farmers Road School had 6, and Long Valley Middle School had 9. That brings us to a total of 20. Lastly, in accordance with NJSA 18A 17-46, the Chief School Administrator must schedule and conduct a public hearing for the purpose of reporting the Board of Education all acts of violence, vandalism, harassment, intimidation, or bullying which occurred during the previous school year. Included in this report is the violence and vandalism data submitted under the Student Safety Data System to the New Jersey Department of Education for the previous school year. So this report includes the incidents from reporting period 1, which is our mid-year report. There were 4 incidents of violence and vandalism at Benedict A. Cuccinella School, 4 incidents of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. There was 1 incident of violence and vandalism at Flocktown Cosman School, 1 other incident leading to removal. There was 1 incident of violence and vandalism at Old Farmers Road School, 1 incident of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. There was 1 incident of violence and vandalism at Long Valley Middle School, 1 incident of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And that concludes my reports for this evening.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a ethics presentation from New Jersey School Boards Association. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Paul Figueroa.
Okay, step 1, testament, okay. Step 2, get the cake out of there. Step 3, introduction. Hi, I'm Paul Panera with New Jersey School Boards Association. We're here to present ethics, as your board president has just mentioned. I have with me tonight Jean Cleary, so we'll be taking turns sitting on and off a little bit. I'd like to start also by congratulating the 2 new school board members and also the re-elected school board member. And really, January is the National School Boards Association month of honor for you. Anyway, congrats on the work you do. It's very important being volunteer. You're not volunteers, you're also officers of the state. So we appreciate all the hours that you put in, and this is a special month set aside for board members. Okay, so with that, we'll jump right in. Well, now I can just Thank you so much. Okay, so first we start off with a disclaimer. So we're not attorneys, and we don't provide, nor does the New Jersey School Boards Association, legal counsel. What we do is we provide the awareness. We try to make you aware of some cases, go over the ethics all with you, but when push comes to shove, this is your foundation course, so to speak, and your board attorney is always the person that you want to speak with when a question arises. So you'll get a lot tonight, but you won't necessarily remember it all. So if there's a time when maybe you're supposed to recuse or something, you might say, well, what did we learn that night? So you'll have resources that will leave with you, but ultimately, you want to check with your board attorney, if you don't mind me saying that.
Please do.
That's what I would do. Okay. All right, so there's a School Ethics Act that dictates a number of tenets that all board members are well held accountable for, but also guide your actions so that you can be the best board members that you can be, and also to hold the respect and confidence of the people who elected you. So the idea is that by practicing and annually refreshing on what the ethics are for board members, you'll be able to maintain the trust of your community, and that's why you're here. Another thing to point out is it's not necessarily just a violation of any of those tenets. It's also the idea that would a reasonable person get the feeling, the sense that there is a violation. So the idea is not just not to violate, but also to always maintain that respect and confidence by being aware of what you do. Okay, so who enforces the act? We don't enforce the act. We help board members get their mandatory training. We also help answer some questions. But there is a School Ethics Commission. So the School Ethics Commission ideally is 9 members, 2 school board members, 2 school administrators, and 5 non-school officials. But, pardon me, in recent years there have been a little bit of trouble filling all those seats. So there's like 6 members now that are deciding cases, so there tends to be a little bit of a backlog. For those of you who were board members last year, my predecessor, Charlene, she mentioned that there was a dump of like many cases at the last minute last December. Well, I'm going to tell you the same thing. So we'll go over a few of the newer cases tonight, but we won't go too far in depth. Okay, so provisions of the act on the left, those apply to board members and, well, trustees if you're a charter school. And on the right, they refer to all school officials. So first and foremost, you'll see a slide in a minute on mandatory training. So all school board members are required to do mandatory training. I'll show you that one in a second. And then this code of ethics, to be aware of it, also sign off on it. So each board member has the list of the code of ethics tenets, as well as a form to sign to show that you've participated in this training. And we'll also talk about disclosure statements. Those are statements that are, you disclose income and family income to some extent. It's not as complicated as it looks. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the bottom line there is nobody wants to know how much money you make. They just want, they need to know if there are conflicts of interest. So that's why that information is collected. And then prohibited acts. We'll be discussing the prohibited acts as well. Those are things that tie into the ethics tenets that guide your actions. So this is the mandatory training. So if you're a new school board member, you've probably already been working with your board secretary or somebody in central office to make sure that in the first 90 days you've gotten your Governance 1. So really what it comes down to for school boards and for school board members is focusing on Governance 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 1 is for first year members, and that's a focus on really a little bit of everything. So it's like a 101 course. Basic knowledge, skills, HIB, which is super important. The evaluation of the school superintendent, CSA, school superintendent, same thing. The code of ethics and the Open Public Meeting Act. So that's like the foundational course. Then in year 2, board members are required to experience a finance and student achievement training. So that's Governance 2. Year 3, Governance 3, policy and labor relations. And then 4 is when you're reelected. So if you're reelected, you take Governance 4 each time you're reelected. You don't have to take it every year. Oh, and for those who don't know maybe, we provide training through multiple options: in-person, live virtual, and self-paced. Okay, so this was, I referenced the disclosure statements. So new school officials have to do this right away, 30 days of being sworn in. And again, this is like a conflict of interest thing, just to have that on record. There's transparency there. And then all of the board members and really officials of the district, they all file that by April 30th. So why? So here's a case, and you'd be surprised, it's not a hard form to fill out. I was a school administrator for many years before I became part of New Jersey School Boards, and like you would say, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. It's better to just do it and get it done. There have been cases, for example, in 2024, where these disclosure statements, which again can take 10 to 15 minutes, weren't filed, and that can be serious to the point where it might be a reprimand, but it's official. So if you're not keeping up with your mandatory training or filing your financial disclosure case, you can be, you can get a reprimand for that. Okay, so what we'll do now is A through J. Those are the ethics that are in front of each of the board members right now. Those are the tenets of the Ethics Act, and we'll go through them. I won't read through it all. I'll just try to highlight it. You have it in front of you if you're a board member, and if you were here or at home in the audience, you can get a sense of it as well. So, A, the first one. The idea of this first one is to uphold and enforce all laws and rules and regulations. So what we have here is this is the tenet, and then the standard is what evidence you would need to have to prove if you were going to file an ethics, if you're going to file an ethics case, then that's how you would do it. You would find that evidence. There'll be a little bit more on that process in a minute, so first we're going to go through these. Okay. So when you make decisions as a board member, you're doing two things. You're making it as a group. Individual board members do not run the schools, obviously. They don't necessarily follow what their campaign promises might have been. They're a team, they're a group, they function as one. Their official, your official power comes from working as a unit, not as individuals. So the idea is you're an empowered unit, and you also think in terms of all children. So the idea is meeting the needs of all children and not necessarily looking for a specific cause or something. Always all children and always as a group. So the foundations, we talked about this just recently with all the new school board members that we trained a little earlier, right before the holidays. And the foundational, there's three foundational pillars for what board members do. So board members do policy, planning, and appraisal. And what that means is policies are what the board approved based on laws that are provided from the Department of Education. So there's a committee that's involved with that. And then there's planning. Those committees are also involved in planning. And then there's appraisal of the superintendent. So that's the annual superintendent's evaluation. Okay, so this goes back to the idea that board members, your job isn't to administer the schools, to run the schools. It's to support the superintendent and also evaluate the superintendent on the job that he or she is doing in running the schools, and also participating in the committees that provide the information and that you can then share at board meetings. So if it's a curriculum committee, that's an empowered position because, well, the position itself isn't. But if you're on a committee, that's how you can also deliver the information to the public, etc. So again, you're now a unit. So if you had run on a campaign, of course you had issues that were important to you and that the community felt was important enough to have you represent them on the board as a board member. So there aren't promises that you can make now. You serve the needs of all students, and you need to maintain the trust and respect of the whole community. Okay, special interest or partisan politic groups, it's the same kind of thing, really. So again, you come in here, you're a group, you make decisions as a group, and you serve the public as one unit. Confidentiality. This is very challenging because we all get it, but sometimes it can be subtle. Confidentiality means protecting the rights of staff, protecting the rights of students, based on the fact that some of the information, like HIB, for example, that you've covered in executive session, that's a time legally where you can speak about matters because they're confidential and it's not okay for the staff or students to have that public. So confidentiality is really important. There's a case later on that we'll say a little bit more about that. Okay. So again, superintendent makes the recommendations to the board about personnel. So the whole process takes place, and the board here's what the superintendent's recommendation is, and then the board can support it through a vote. And if they have a different opinion, then their vote could reflect that. And of course, also, making sure that those kinds of processes are followed based on policy. So that's really, the board is involved in also making sure that policy is being adhered to. Support and protect school personnel. So the same idea is that you're here for the schools, and you're also here to support the school personnel. And same thing, you want to make sure that they're safe and that the policies support that and that they can do their jobs. The complaints, so this is like a chain of command type thing. So lots of times, people your board members, your community knows you, you'll be at a youth softball game or youth sports game, and it's natural for people to want to express how they feel about something, so they may. And that's fine, and you can listen to that, of course, but the idea is to encourage them. In fact, it's expected and required that you encourage them to go to the chain of command. So that means if it's an issue at a school, they go, start with the teacher, for example. And if you're not satisfied there, you go up the chain, principals, so forth. Okay, so ethics complaint. An ethics complaint can be filed by any person, and they file it to the SEC, and that's the Ethics Commission. So there's an 180-day window for someone to do that. That's pretty, so like a school year. That's how much time they have if there's an issue that they're concerned about. One of the things that's important, though, is we just don't necessarily, nobody needs a lot of ethics complaints that are, or maybe vindictive or something. So there is a fine up to $500 if it's a frivolous filing. The other thing to keep in mind is it has to be based on these tenets that we're talking about this evening. So if you're going to file a complaint, it has to be tied into one of those tenets. In fact, that's the standard that it would have to meet for the complaint to be upheld. And that evidence must be clear. Go back to that standard. So there are penalties. So the first one is sort of a slap on the wrist, but it is a slap on the wrist from the commissioner. So if for some reason the SEC does find that the complaint is legitimate, then the commissioner, the first level is a reprimand. So that's, slap on the wrist type thing. Censure is a little different. That's a formal disapproval by the commissioner that gets adopted by resolution. So that comes to a board meeting, and it becomes part of the record that a person has been found out of compliance with ethics. Suspension, that's third level, much more serious. Barred from engaging any activity or matter for a designated period of time, 30, 60 days, for example. And then finally, if it's a very serious issue, removal. It's immediate termination from board membership. Or employment if it's an administrator. Okay, advice of counsel, defense for penalties. So if in fact, one of the reasons I suggested early on that if you have a question, you talk to your board attorney, is because they can guide you through this process. But the important thing though is for you to be aligned with that, there are 4 things that the commission would look at. First of all, was approval and advice was received prior to the action, and the individual who offered the advice or approval relied upon possessed authority or responsibility, that all pertinent facts and circumstances were fully disclosed, and the individual complied with the advice received. So all 4 of those factors of the advice of counsel defense must be met. Okay, so here's just we'll look at maybe one of the cases, and let's see. And then I think we're gonna switch it over. So here's one that came 2025. So a board member was aware, and the superintendent suggested to the board member, to all board members, look, there's talk, you're talking about as a board that we're going to reduce the amount of instructional time. Coinciding with that is the idea that that the negotiations are taking place with the union. So you can see that there's an obvious connection between the idea that during negotiations, knowing that information could complicate things. So the discussion is okay to have that, but revealing that at that time, especially after the superintendent reminded board members not to, is important. So in that case, there was a recommended censure. So that means the commissioner pointed it out as an ethics breach, and it also had to be noted officially. Now, all of these, so for the board members, you'll have this digitally. So in any of these cases, you can click on the hyperlinks and you get the whole thing. So some of it's fun to read, a lot of it's it's long, but these are great things. If something rings a bell with you or strikes you in a certain way, resonates with you, then you can look at it at a deeper level. Okay, and then after this one, I'll turn it over to Jean, but yeah, be careful of text messages. That'll come up again later. Like for example, if you're texting at a board meeting, technically that could be part of open public records, so that gets complicated. You want to avoid that. This other one here, though, is 15-year, so even after 15 years, sometimes board members may have a lapse. And so in this case, after 15 years, a board member took inappropriate action that was beyond their role. So what happened was there was a personnel matter, and the board member disagreed with the superintendent's handling of it and wanted to advocate for that employee. So the board member got a letter from the employee, brought it to a board meeting, executive session, asked it not to be shared with the superintendent, and then had it shared among the board. It was trying to, in effect, undermine the superintendent's ability to supervise and take action on employees, which is the superintendent's role, not the board's role. So that was clearly worthy of a suspension, 60 days. That's a big one.
We're going to switch off.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we look at recusal and abstention, these are just terms that you want to be comfortable with as a board member. So abstention is appropriate for times where you may not be able to participate in a vote. And a good example of that would be if you are at a board meeting and you're going to vote on approving the minutes of the previous board meeting, but you weren't in attendance at that meeting. Maybe you were sick or had something that kept you from the meeting. It would be inappropriate to vote on that, right? But recusal is actually the formal way that you go on record, remembering that the whole purpose of the Code of Ethics and the other standards and the filing of disclosure forms is because we want to maintain the confidence of our community, right, in the school officials to be making good decisions for students. So you would, if you recognize that you have a conflict or are concerned that it could be perceived by reasonable members of the community that there is a conflict, you would need to recuse yourself, and that's the formal way to memorialize that, okay? What you would do as best practice is to let the board president and the attorney know ahead of time, just so that you could get guidance from the board attorney about whether or not that's going to affect quorum that evening for your meeting or affect votes, okay? On this slide, I'm not going to spend too much time. I believe the handouts were given out, and there's a whole sheet there about relationships, and it goes on and on and on. You should refer to that. That's partly related to why you file family disclosure forms, to identify those times where, because of your relationships, or family members, or even what's considered other related to you, it might appear as though you may not be able to be objective, so you wouldn't be able to participate in certain matters. So advisory opinions. If you, thank you for turning them around. If you, I would go back to that, and if you have any questions, please go to your board attorney for guidance, because you want to really hear it from someone who is here to support the board. So advisory opinions are available as a way, you know, you have a question you want to pose. You've been taking your ethics training, you've been paying attention, you want to stay on the right side of things, you want to maintain the public confidence. And something that you're thinking of doing, you have a question about would this get me in any trouble? Would this be wrong to do? So you can, as a public school official, any board member or lead administrator or the attorney on your behalf can request guidance through an advisory opinion to the School Ethics Commission. When they get that and they look at that question, they may decide that, you know, this is a good question and the advice we're going to give to this person would really be helpful for board members throughout the state of New Jersey. They can vote. If 6 members, and they're currently only operating with 6, we hope that with the new governor that they'll bring that up to full staff on the Ethics Commission. But they can decide, like, if this has value, we're going to put this basically in a library so that other people have access to this information to guide them on their board governance. What they'll do is they'll remove any identifying information about you or your board. The purpose is really just to educate people, okay? So the Ethics Commission is recognized as the authority, like your local police officer. They're there to provide that guidance to you, but they're also the ones that are going to hold you accountable if you don't follow the advice that's given. The very important thing on this slide is on the bottom, we have a link, and that link will bring you to all of the advisory opinions. Now, an important thing for board members to really recognize is you are not just bound by the questions you ask directly to the Ethics Commission. You are bound by the advice that's been previously given and posted through these advisory opinions. So it's really important that you become a little familiar with it, and before you pose a question, just go in there and see if a similar question has been asked before and answered. So on the next 2 slides, we're going to just have, and again, as Paul said, these are hyperlinks that will bring you to the case, and it just has a quick sentence about what it pertains to. So if you're doing your board work and you think, ooh, this might be something, you know, you can go in and look. But these are the ones that were released in 2025. So they're the newest ones that have come out. And they cover topics from, you know, a wide range of topics, from when it's appropriate to use the doctrine of necessity, which basically is something used by boards that have a majority of conflicted board members, but it has to be very specific cases where you can use that, to things like, can a board member hire a district teacher to tutor their child, right? Anything that could be interpreted by a reasonable member of your community as something that would seem less than objective to do or call into question those actions. On the next slide, we even have one. There was a question this year, can a board member hire an administrator from the district to work in a company that they had outside of the locality, right? And what implications that would have, and if they were able to do that. So I suggest really that you, because these are the newest ones, maybe just take a moment to go through them. Advisory opinions are really pretty quick to read. They don't really, they're not as lengthy as some of the cases that we decided, so it's helpful to be familiar with them. So one of the things that's important for this when we look at maintaining public trust is that board members are not supposed to have advantages of receiving benefits that wouldn't be available to the general public, right? So the Ethics Commission recognizes that if they're going to say that you can't benefit, they should really give a definition for that. And the definition that's posted up here is that a benefit would be a direct or indirect advantage, profit, privilege, or gain, whether personal, financial, or otherwise. And that or otherwise should make everyone just stop a moment, right? Because it was purposely put there because ethics cases are generally decided on the very specific issues at hand and the impact it will have on your community. So if it would be simple if Paul and I could come in here and just say, do this and you'll be good, and don't do that and you'll be in trouble. But it really is very case specific and the impact things will have on your community. Important to recognize is it's not whether you as an individual board member believe that you can still be objective, right? It's based on how reasonable members of your community would see that. And we want to really hold that high standard to maintain the trust and confidence in you as you go about doing the really important work of governance that you need to do to serve your students. on the bottom, we have a case where a board member, and just to point out, when it says C42, that means case 42-23 is the year. As with many legal cases, they take time to get to a final adjudication. But this was a board member who spoke from the board table about the fact that they were running for the General Assembly. And it was seen as, an advantage of talking about that from the board table where someone else running for office wouldn't have had that benefit and that exposure. And it was a recommended reprimand. So the School Ethics Commission does the fact-finding, investigates, they make the recommendation to the Commissioner of Education, who ultimately has to act upon that recommendation. So here we have the prohibited acts. So this is one of the 4 things, right, that the board members are all responsible for, but filing disclosure statements, as well as being in compliance with prohibited acts, is also affects lead administrators in the district, okay? So prohibited acts are things that would call into question your objectivity because of a benefit, which we just gave the definition for you as a school official or your immediate family. And specifically in these areas, a business interest or a professional activity that could be seen as being in conflict, the use of your position to secure unwarranted privileges, advantages, or employment. So I recently had a district that I work with where, with absolutely no intent, the board president was sharing with me how happy she was that her child was going to be was chosen to work for a summer internship in the district. And I had to educate her to the fact that that was actually speak to your attorney, your board attorney, because I didn't go to law school, but that is likely to going to bring pain to you, because even if that child was selected through some clear process, had nothing to do, it's not whether we believe that, it's what the community is going to believe. And it's not going to seem that that happened just on the merits of the child, right? So they had to go and not have the child selected for that internship. Financial involvement that may impair objectivity. So if you own part of a publishing company and the board is looking at buying textbooks, it might not be something that you can participate in discussions and votes about. Service or employment that could prejudice independent judgment, gives favors offered with an intent to influence. You may not feel that it's an intent to influence, but it's how other people will perceive it. And of course, any financial gain. So a very important thing to really remember is that board members may never represent any other person or party other than the board and the district in matters before the board. So for the case that Paul was speaking about a few minutes ago, where that board member went and was kind of trying to advocate for the staff member against the recommendations of the superintendent for disciplinary action, they were representing a staff member's interest. That was not the board's interest, right? And it also was outside the bounds of what their responsibilities are. That's the role of administration. So here we're going to have some prohibited acts cases, because we were just talking about prohibited acts. The first one is a case from 2023 where a board member, in defense of an ethics violation they were charged with, was given legal representation. And just like what naturally happens when you're being represented by legal people, there was a relationship that was formed, right? They're looking out for this board member's interests. The problem came in when the bill list came, and that firm appeared on the bill list, and the board member went ahead and participated in the vote to pay that. They should have recused themselves, right, from that vote. Because of that, it was a recommended censure, so that became something that had to be a resolution outlining who the board member was and what the infraction was. And these things aren't just about right and wrong. As board members, you're here to govern and see that the district is being well-run for students, and anything that gets in the way of that focus is really cheating your students out of the focus and attention that they really, deserve. Under the second one, there was it says superintendent here. I believe it was actually an interim superintendent whose adult child worked in the district, and the superintendent got involved in conversations with administrators pertaining to things that would affect their child's employment, and really should have known better, and that became recommended for censure as well. So we have a bunch of these cases for you to look at. These are only snapshots of the full case. It's worth kind of getting familiar. This one was actually interesting because outside of your direct family relationships and all those relationships on that sheet, some people may fall into an other category. So this board member was actually advocating to get rid of the wrestling coach and fill it in with a wrestling coach that they preferred, and was advocating to other board members to get support for that, for a position that wasn't open, by the way. So that was a recommended reprimand. So we have conflict of interest cases here also, so these are just put out there for you to get comfortable with, to understand how all of this is tied together under the Ethics Act, right? Maintaining that public confidence so you can stay focused on serving the students of the district. And any questions that you have about if you see something that's similar or something you're concerned about, your board attorney can give you that guidance so that you feel really confident in how you interact and how you move forward to ensure that the focus is where it belongs, which is on your students. I'm still going, right? Okay, and so hiring and personnel. It's important that the board recognizes that you may not ever hire the relative of a board member or the relative of the superintendent. Now, we recognize that at times you may come onto the board after you have a family member that's working in the district. Or an administrator may come in after their family member was already there. So an administrator may not exercise any direct or indirect authority over their relative. A board member cannot take part in any employment matters concerning anyone that supervises their relative family member, up to and including the superintendent. And a board member may not take part in the search, selection, or vote to hire a new superintendent, or participate in the annual evaluation of the superintendent, which board members are required to do under statute. That you would be considered a conflicted board member and would not be permitted to participate in the discussions on that matter. So committee assignments, presidents hold the authority to, as was, with your reorg, you're kind of addressing this now, serving on what committees, but this advisory opinion was addressed because they were questioning, the president had a family member in the district, it was a child who worked as an instructional assistant, and whether they would be limited, and in fact, very limited. They were not able to assign chairs to committees or board members to committees or participate in any committee that could in any way touch upon their child's employment in the district, which was very limiting. Similarly for a spouse in the district. So on this slide, collective bargaining, again, another reason to bring to mind what your relationships are and how they may affect some work that you would be asked to do, sitting on a negotiations committee or what. Refer to this, and I would really strongly suggest that, more than being an expert tonight, that you bring these matters, especially to your board attorney, to guide you on whether or not it's appropriate for you to participate on those committees. Okay, and I'm going to turn this over to Paul.
Thanks, Jean. Okay. Actually, while Jean was speaking, I thought of a really nuanced ethics issue from many years ago when I was, I guess I was a high school vice principal. So our athletic director would order practice shirts for the basketball players. So he would order them by the gross, and they usually do an overrun of some sort. So it seemed to make sense. It was never an issue, but when he had the overrun, there were a bunch of us, the staff members who played basketball once a week. So we got to wear our, the high school practice t-shirts that they wore, the kids wore, and it seemed innocent enough. The business administrator wouldn't take one. And I said, just, they're overs, they're fine. He was like, well, no, because if that guy, so here was his reasoning when I said, why is that unethical? And he said, because if that vendor wanted to keep his business with us, he might purposely overrun them so that you had plenty of practice jerseys for your staff members. And I scratched my head. I said, oh, I guess that's what ethics is all about. So it can be nuanced. And that's a good example of how the intention might not have been to get those jerseys for his pals who were administrators in the district and wanted to play basketball on Thursdays. It still could be perceived that way, because it could be done that way. So anyway, that popped into my head. That was a really good example in my mind over the years of how nuanced the idea of ethics can be and what is perceived or not. Anyway, that was my digression. So back to what Jean had just started with regard to negotiations. This I thought was pretty interesting. So if a union endorses a board member and provides even contributions, financial contributions to that, you have to wait a year before that board member can be involved in any kind of conversations about negotiations and certainly voting on negotiations. So I thought that was interesting. It's possible, and this is one of those situations where I think I would talk to the board attorney, where if there were no financial contributions and there was just some kind of support from the union, then you might not have to recuse from conversations about negotiations. But the fact that it says likely in here, at least in the case, that you likely don't have to do it, it's worth a conversation with somebody, your board attorney. Okay, and then there's always the volunteering. So a lot of you start out as volunteering in the communities or in your schools to begin with, and then you say, I feel like I can help at a higher level, and then before you know it, you're sitting at this table. So volunteering is not something that gets out of your blood just because you come on the board and there are things going around in the schools that maybe you don't want to let go of. So this is a little bit of an overview, but again, you always want to be careful and do a little bit more digging. But the rule of thumb is, if your involvement is with staff and students, it comes down to your level of interaction and how much authority you are demonstrating in that situation. So if you're, I don't know, going to do some reading on a book of the month kind of day or Dr. Seuss day, you go in, you do a reading, that's fine. You attend a field trip with the class, you're a parent, you're still a parent, you can do that, that's fine. It gets sticky when you're either sort of directing staff, directing students, or you're enmeshed in that school. So it really comes down to, are you part of what's going on in that school, or are you just being like a parent and attending things that are not enmeshed? Let's just leave it with enmeshed. Visiting a school. It's a good idea for a board member to let the superintendent know that you will be in school as a parent or volunteer, unless it's part of your regular, like you participate on a school liaison committee or the PTO. But when you're going to be in a school, it's a courtesy, it's appropriate to let the superintendent know if it's not something they're already aware of you doing. And of course, if you're doing that, you should avoid conversations about board business. Maybe avoid the idea of we, and we're doing this and we're doing that. You're there as a parent, you're an individual, you're not a we at the moment. Right, and stay on point with the purpose of the visit. Okay, just a few more. Okay, so social media, right? So it's very, very sticky. Most of us would tell you just avoid it. But if you're going to, it's such a big part of so many people's lives that if you're going to be on social media, there are a few tips we can give you. But this I really recommend everybody do a deep dive in, a little, after this is over and you have some time. But the idea is, again, you're an individual if you're doing something with your social media. Oh yeah, and I'll tell you about the disclaimer. So you don't want to be speaking as if you're speaking on behalf of the board. And one of the best ways to do that is don't discuss board business in your post. You can like a great picture of the winter concert and that kind of thing, but you're starting to get yourself into some sticky areas if you're talking as if you might be representing the board. You always need to be an individual, a person in the community, as opposed to giving the impression that you're speaking on behalf of the board. There's a disclaimer that we often recommend people use, whether, on their social media, whether they're posting about schools or not. If you avoid it altogether, that's fine. But I'd like to quote our senior directors. It's not a get out of jail free card. So you can't just post that and then say, oh, I posted that, I can say whatever I want. No, you always want to be mindful that you want to stick to this idea that you're an individual, and then when you're at the board, you got superpowers, and now you're representing the board as a whole. You're not an individual representing the board on your own. Okay, so yeah, there are social media cases. I think I just referred to this one. I'll start at the bottom because the magic word "we," that was the complication there. A school board member was talking about, well, we discussed this and then we did that, and that can get sticky if it starts to seem like the way you're describing it is the feeling of the entire board. So that's something to avoid. The one up top here as well. Oh, okay, yeah. So, yeah, that was a discussion of stuff that's going on with regard to curriculum, the selection of books, and that went a little south because it can be referred to as harm. So the teachers started getting spooked about whether or not they were going to have books taken away, and it was just sort of a reference to, you know, how the board looks at books and their selection and how that's part of what boards do. But it spooked, it created harm among staff. All right, so here's just kind of an overview of a couple of things to absolutely keep in mind. Texting from the board table could be a big problem. Avoid that. An ethics complaint needs to show a nexus between the action or information sharing and your role as a board member. You are your child's advocate first and foremost, and so what we mean by that is you always have the right, if you have a child in the schools, to meet with a teacher and to have conversations about your kid. I mean, that's important. You're a parent. The idea there is to try to check your board member hat, you know, at the door. You know, just go in there and I'm someone, you know, I'm Judy's parent. I'm here as a parent. The teacher might refer to it, but you know, I think it's probably good to just redirect and not have a conversation about what the board, because you know, maybe a teacher innocently wants to talk to you about what the board is discussing. She says, oh, I'm just here to talk about my child, and then it's not a problem. Yeah, so I think I mentioned this before. So a lot of board members campaign to get on the board, and that's important, and the issues you discuss are important to you and maybe many of your constituent friends, community members, and that's expected and appropriate, but once you're on the board, it's a good idea to shut that thing down, because now everything you do is based on coming to a group action on different issues, and it always is supposed to reflect your concern about all students. So it's always about all students and not maybe individual campaign issues that you might have been interested in. And then lastly on this slide, if you, you could be linked to the content posted on that page. So just another reminder about social media that even if you're not saying much, if you're part of, linked to, or administering, like let's say you administer a social media account that has something to do with the schools. People on there could start speaking about things that are damaging, harmful, create divisiveness, and cause problems. Well, if you're the administrator and that's going on there, that could be problematic. Okay, so Jean mentioned before, and I think I did as well, that these links are great resources in addition to all the other links that took you to the cases that were being referenced there. So we encourage you to keep these handy. Again, you'll have the digital versions for yourself, so you can click on these at any time. And then, of course, again, January is a Board Appreciation Month, so thank you for your service. What you do is some of the most important work that can be done. So thank you for that. And do you have any questions? All right, and we'll let you get back to it. Did you want to add anything? Then thank you. Have a great rest of your meeting. Happy New Year, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Moving on to correspondence. This month, we have correspondence from D. Whitco, M. Hunt, and M. Mikowski. Next are committee reports. Can I have one report, which is education? Somebody please read the education committee report.
Education Committee met on Friday, December 12th. In attendance were Lindsay Succi, Rob Waskis, Ms. Russo, our Director of Curriculum and Assessment, Superintendent Moon, and myself. We discussed an AI grant. We have the opportunity to partner with King University and New Jersey City University for a grant from the U.S. Department of Education. The grant proposal is called AI Impacts, AI Integration, Mentorship, Pedagogy, and Advancing Competencies for Teachers and Students. As a partner for this initiative, Carolee Gately and Jessica Toomey would participate on the project's advisory board consisting of university faculty, K-12 educators, administrators, and technology leaders from the partner New Jersey districts. Our district will have the opportunity to host AI professional learning activities for our staff and provide feedback on these PD workshops. We reviewed upcoming professional development. Elementary teachers will work with Lincoln with a focus on looking at their data, how to use it and work with it. Discuss the DIVL's conversation and review of state requirements and assessments. Special education teachers will meet with our law firm for P-Day, and LVMS will have AI professional development. And then we received an update on planning and staffing for the PALS program. We had a lot of interest from our teachers, and we conducted interviews to afford everyone a voice of opportunity for the position. And lastly, we discussed TREPS with an update on Overstock. We also discussed new ideas for future years, Mr. Jones and admin and review.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the public comment on agenda items. If anyone has a public comment on agenda items, please approach the microphone, state your name, address, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide any comment.
Melissa Mikowski, East Mill Road. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm here as a parent of a child who's required additional support to feel safe, regulated, and able to learn in the school setting. Like many students who receive support services, my son relies heavily and consistently on trusted adults and predictable relationships in order to succeed. I want to speak about Mrs. Waco, my son's shared aide. She worked closely with him, particularly over the past couple of years. She understood his needs, recognized the early signs of distress, and helped him navigate social situations that are particularly challenging for him. To my son, she represented safety and reassurance. She consistently encouraged him, helped him rebuild his confidence, and supported him during the moments when he felt singled out and discouraged. Over the course of the year, my son has experienced repeated negative interactions with a peer, interactions that are often subtle, difficult to detect in the moment, and easy to overlook, yet deeply impactful for a child who is already working hard to regulate and fit in. These moments were not always obvious, but they were felt. And when they occurred, Mrs. Waco was the one adult who consistently noticed and intervened early and helped my son feel protected, validated. That kind of relationship is not easily replaced. When support like that is present, a child can recover and continue learning, and when it is suddenly removed, the emotional impact can be immediate and profound. The sudden removal of Mrs. Waco without communication to me as a parent, it disrupted my child's sense of security at school. For students who depend on trusted relationships, abrupt changes are not small adjustments. They can be devastating, destabilizing, and discouraging. I want to be clear, I'm not here to excuse inappropriate conduct, nor am I here to place blame on any individual student or staff. I'm here to ask that decisions be made with full context. When ongoing peer challenges are not fully addressed, situations can escalate, and in these moments, the adults closest to the students are often making split-second decisions in order to maintain safety and stability. Removing a dedicated member of Old Farmers Road schools such as Mrs. Waco without addressing the underlying dynamic does not resolve the issue. It removes a layer of protection and support for a child who depends on it. Mrs. Wickel demonstrates care, commitment, and advocacy. She consistently lifted my son up when he felt discouraged, helped him persevere through difficult moments, and made a school a place where he felt seen and supported. That relationship mattered, and it's a loss that has real consequences. I respectfully ask the board to consider the full picture, not just a single moment, just the broader context, please. And the student impact, I ask that you consider whether retaining a skilled, compassionate aide aligns with the district's commitment to student well-being, inclusion, and fairness. My son deserves a learning environment where he feels safe and supported, and the staff member who provides that support deserves thoughtful, balanced consideration when difficult decisions are made. Please remember that this vote will echo far beyond tonight in a heart of a child who finally felt safe because someone chose to stand up for him. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Nancy Muha. I've been a resident of Long Valley for about 30 years now. I have 2 children go through the school system, a wonderful school system, excellent school system. They're very successful. I've known Diane for 30 years. She's raised 3 beautiful daughters. She's in my neighborhood. She's a friend, confidant, and I learned of her sudden, abrupt firing of a job that she loved to do. And I've been with her on many social occasions where I've seen children come up to her and say, "Oh, hi, Mrs. Wickel, we love you, blah, blah, blah." So it's, I guess, it's my frustration as, this is actually my first board meeting. I've never been to a board meeting before. I guess I'm just frustrated as a resident of this town and this community, and I've been a volunteer. I worked on the PTO at Old Farmers when my kids were going through, and I am just disheartened by this sudden removal without any kind of look at her history. She's been working there 5 years. Was there any look at what she, her record? From what I understand, her record is impeccable. She's received multiple evaluations and scored the high on that. So I guess, I don't know all the details, but I am seriously disturbed by this. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Are there any other public comment on agenda items?
Anybody else there?
Tell them that they're asking.
Thank you to the folks who did the ethics, who gave me some ideas. One thing that stood out initially, you kept referring to the idea of reason and reasonable people. Didn't see that with this, didn't see that at all. Another thing in the ethics, they said respect and confidence of the people. Nancy just said the community, parents. I think it's lost, probably lost that zone. You as a board, I don't know what kind of powers you have, but you have to consider what you do as a team, and when something threatens the respect and confidence of the people, that's got to be a problem. Not a political inconvenience or whatever. Another thing you said, very important, power is not an individual power. It just said you can't make a decision on yourself. It's you're part of a team where you evaluate the facts, or the feelings, the situation, the environment, and make a judgment as a team. I don't know why this knee-jerk abominable decision was even allowed when you have a group like this that's supposed to be watching over how things should work. So, and finally, I saw something out there said one of the roles of this, either this board or the superintendent, was to support and protect school personnel. Clearly failed. Is that what you want? Report, I guess, clearly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would you mind just state your name for the record?
Paul Winter is my husband. I just want to say that I thank the people that came out to support me. And I was totally blindsided by this decision. I went into the meeting not knowing what was going on. I was totally blindsided. And I spoke to a family member who is also a superintendent, and plenty more years than you have. And he told me, get an attorney. This was, you broke more protocol than I did. You told me I broke protocol because I didn't come to you. We never did that. You ask anybody that works here. For 30 years, they always went to the secretary. I'm going to be getting an attorney because it's nonsense. Do you know how many parents come up to me and say, my name came up at dinner time? Not for bad things, for good things. Do you know how many parents here are saying right now they're wondering where I am in school? What happened to Mrs. Wicko? You better call her. I think she's very sick. And we worry about her. You said I upset the class. I did not. You told me I upset the whole class. They're missing me, and they're confused. Thank you. How are we going to let them know? You'll be hearing from my attorney.
Is there any other public comment on agenda items?
Anti-bullying. You picked the bullies. You represent the
Ma'am, if
bullies.
you want to come back to the mic, you can.
Yeah, I do.
Well, after everybody else has had an opportunity. If she was in the middle of her comments, we could continue, but it's preferable that she not call out from the audience is the point. I don't know if there's other folks that want to speak first.
Is there any other public comment on agenda items?
Never mind. Thank you.
All right. Just to be certain, are there any other public comments on agenda items? Okay. Well, I thank everybody for their comments. I mean, as you know, we don't normally comment publicly on personnel items, so I don't really have a whole lot to add to that unless anybody else wants.
Not at this point, when we get to that section.
All right. So moving on to approval of the minutes. I'm making a motion to approve the December 9th regular meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Yeah, and both of the board members abstain on the,
Next, motion to approve the December 9th executive session meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Next, moving on to agenda, can I please have somebody, I'm sorry, education, can I please have somebody move education?
And let's make a motion to approve items 1 through 3 on the agenda.
Second. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Musar?
Yes.
Mrs. Viera?
Is Mrs. Vieira still on the call?
Mrs. Guyano? Yes. Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Katana? Mr. Olson?
Yes. Next, can I have somebody please move finance?
Finance would like to move item number 4 on tonight's agenda, a motion to accept with gratitude the following contribution, $124.45 from Follett Content Solutions to be used at the Old Farmers Road School Library.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Musar? Yes.
Mrs. Cayano?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Olmstead?
Yes. Next, personnel.
Hang on, I need to move the rest.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Finance would like to move items 5 through 9 on tonight's agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Muchar?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira? Mrs. Vieira? Mrs. Cayano?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Olmstead?
Yes. Next, can I have somebody please move for personnel?
Yes, personnel would like to move number 10, motion to accept with regret the following retirement. Julia Shannon, teacher of elementary, Old Farmers Road School, effective July 1st, 2026, after 18 years of service in the district.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes.
I just wanted to take a second to thank Mrs. Shannon for her kindness. My son was blessed enough to have her, and she's really just a very gentle soul. She's just really she's been a blessing really to work with for so long. So she'll be missed, but well-deserved retirement.
And I second that as well. She's been great, she'll be missed, and I wish her the best of luck with her retirement. Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Muchar?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira? Mrs. Cayano?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Olmstead?
Yes. And before we move on to the next personnel items, Mr. Zittimer, would you mind just explaining?
Sure. So before we get to the resumption of the remaining personnel items, I wanted to explain that under the Open Public Meetings Act, when the Board of Education intends to discuss somebody's employment under the law, the employee has a right to what's called a Rice Notice, which comes from some case law. And basically what that Rice Notice says is to the employee, we plan on discussing your employment in closed or private session. However, if you wish, you can compel that discussion into public session, essentially waiving your right to privacy. So a discussion that would ordinarily take place in private session at the employee's behest will take place in public. So essentially the employee saying, I waive my right to privacy and say everything publicly that you would ordinarily say in private session. And the reason I tell you that is that for item number 13, Mrs. Whitco received a Rice Notice and she compelled that discussion into public, essentially saying she wanted the superintendent to explain to the board the rationale for the recommendation publicly rather than in private session. This is not the option of the board, this is the option of the employee. So I just wanted to explain to the public why we're talking about a personnel matter that ordinarily would be discussed in private session, and those were the wishes of Mrs. Whitco. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Lind to articulate to the board the reason for the recommendation in item number 13.
Thank you. For personnel item number 13, following a thorough employment investigation, Ms. Whitco's position was terminated due to conduct violations, specifically inappropriate interactions with students and staff members, abandonment of job duties, and unprofessional conduct.
Is there any, or I guess we're moving on to personnel now, so if you can move the remaining items.
Personnel would like to move items 11 through 18.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. DeSico?
Yes.
Mrs. Muchar?
Yes.
Mrs. Vieira? Mrs. Cayano?
Yes.
Mr. Waskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Bratton?
Yes.
Mr. Catano?
Yes.
Mr. Olmstead?
Yes. Next, moving on to unfinished business. Does anybody have any unfinished business? Does anybody have any new business? Okay. Moving on to public comment. This is public comment on all items. If you have a public comment, please approach the microphone, state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Carolinas, 30 Zellers Road. Proud educator, Old Farmers Road School. I don't pretend to know anything that's going on, and I wish Diane were still here. I just wanted to thank her for her service.
Thank you, Mrs. Lyons. Is there any other public comment on all items? I want to thank Mrs. Wickham for her service as well to our district. That concludes the public comment. Don't have any district distinctions tonight, so I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.